Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be focusing on a conversation between me and Grandmaster Ricardo Murgel. Instead of going right into that conversation, what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about his background and how we met. He is a 9th-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has over 6 decades of martial arts experience, including judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as well as a similar amount of experience training law enforcement. He started his martial arts and law enforcement journey at the age of 12. He is the head coach, instructor, and founder of Union Team BJJ. Over the many years that he has been running Union Team, he has trained many world champions, most notably Fabricio Verdun and Nate Marquardt. Now, I originally met the Grandmaster because he reached out to me through Elite U. He was looking at some of our content and realizing that there was a little bit of a jiu-jitsu background with obviously my instruction. He really liked how a lot of the concepts and a lot of the techniques that I was going over really resembled some of the techniques and principles that he came up with over his long journey in the martial arts and combative fields. I made a small trip out to Alpharetta, Georgia, which is where his current martial arts school is. And I spent a day with him. And over that span of time, I got to realize that even though he has an extensive background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which if anyone understands anything about that martial art, a lot of times it lends really far into the sport application, and the self-defense or practical application like personal protection is sometimes lacking. The understanding of use of weapons, modern weapons, the ability to not only use but defend against them, the understanding that you may be dealing with multiple attackers, the intent of the people attacking you. It can be anything from a minor assault directly to trying to physically harm them or kill them. And so the conversations that me and the Grandmaster had really pointed out that his mentality, even for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, really resembled a lot of what we were doing on Elite U. And so that is one thing I want you to take note of as we are doing this interview, how even though he has an extensive background in Jiu-Jitsu, he is constantly circling back to his experiences as to why he thinks that personal protection and understanding what he calls the missing link is something that should be a part of everyone's journey. If you want to contact the Grandmaster, you can actually get in touch with him at his personal site for Union Team, which is www.unionteambjj.com. I hope to have him as a mentor on the Elite U, so you'll be able to find him there. So without further delay, let's get directly into that interview. This is hopefully going to be one of many. Well, welcome to Elite U, sir. It's an honor to have you, to come out and talk a little bit about your history in Jiu-Jitsu. And I know it's an extensive background, and so we're going to try to do this in a couple parts, but there's a lot about personal protection and how it works with Jiu-Jitsu and your thought process that's very unique that I found working with Jiu-Jitsu. So Grandmaster, could you kind of go a little bit into the beginnings of your start into Jiu-Jitsu and kind of like how it kind of brought all the way to the front?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It was
Yes,
a
sir.
pleasure and an honor for me to be with you and have a chance to talk about, I don't say about myself, but about so many decades of knowledge that I get through the practice and through the reality that I face it.
Yes, sir.
So I say that I started in 1957, and it was a very interesting fact because I started in they call Olímpico Club in Copacabana, in Rio de Janeiro, for where I born, and was a kind of, we can say today that was a MMA, if I can say that, was because we training, I have 12 years old, but we train a little bit of boxing, a little bit of capoeira, a little bit of judo, and a little bit of kind of wrestling, if I can say that, or grappling,
Right.
more like a luta livre, which is a freestyle, but not specific jiu-jitsu, Gracie jiu-jitsu. And I remember that at that time, I had been talking with my father about have a chance to go to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy, but it was very expensive.
Right.
The Jiu-Jitsu to train it with the Gracies, you need to have a certain amount of money to pay per month. Was very selected,
Yes,
no,
sir.
unless that you'll be hired by them to be one of the professionals over there. And I continued to train for a while that I trained boxing, and then they invite me to train in judo, which I trained in judo till my 17 years old, more or less. And I went to the university, I went into college, the law school, and one of my colleagues at the class was nowadays, of course, the Grandmaster Álvaro Barreto, brother of João Alberto Barreto, Flávio, Sérgio Barreto, unfortunately, is already deceased, no? But and he invited me to training jiu-jitsu. And Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was at that time has only 3 schools in Rio de Janeiro, and one of them was the school of the Barretos, no?
Right.
And they invited me to train. At that time, I was a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, and they invited me to train in Jiu-Jitsu. At that moment, I started to be more and more involved because, by coincidence of life, all my judo instructors are very good in newaza, which is the ground fighting,
Yes, sir.
despite the fact that was related specifically with the Gracie, but was newaza, was jiu-jitsu too, and the ground. So I really like jiu-jitsu on the ground anyway. So that's why I started to training, but just after 2 or 3 years came the kind of civil war in Brazil, and the communists tried to take over Brazil and transform Brazil in a Cuba, like a Marxist Cuba,
Yes,
or
sir.
a satellite of the former Soviet Union. And I went to fight against them, and I was like 4 or 5 years fully dedicated against them till we beat them. Unfortunately, they came back now, but this is another stuff. But
Right.
anyway, so when I came back, when I have time up to come back, I started to training more focused for the martial art part of jiu-jitsu, because at that time, the Grandmaster Hélio Gracie, that was the man that oriented all the jiu-jitsu in Brazil, emphasized that jiu-jitsu was not for sport. He used to say, you want to do sport, you should do judo, you should do other sports or wrestling or whatever, but jiu-jitsu is not for sport, it's for real life situation. And they have a whole system, the Gracie self-defense system, to do that. At the middle of the end of the 70s, probably beginning of the 80s, you start to have more competitions, and that start to come the generation, the other generation that came, the generation of the late House Grace and the other ones, which I have the pleasure to meet too. But that's what really start to have the jiu-jitsu turn focus in competition,
Right.
with different rules of the nowadays called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, no? And one of the greatest teams, probably the biggest or the greatest teams in Brazil at that time, was the Carlson Gracie team. So it's a completely different type of jiu-jitsu in terms of competition, because the rules are much more simple and have no basic, nothing considered like advantage or all those subjective rules they have it.
Right.
But the truth is that with that, more and more the martial art part of jiu-jitsu, that where the first generations learn, because they not compete. None of the grandmasters, including myself, unless that compete as a master, the division, they never had anything compared with any of the nowadays competitors.
Right.
No,
So, like, but before the popularity grew, there
yeah,
just wasn't enough practitioners to run regular tournaments.
yeah, exactly. And besides, you start to have the first ones to be able to organize a little bit competition. The most famous at that time was a company they call Copa Company. Was a kind of a company. Company was a name of a store. Not a store. Clothing. A
Okay.
clothing manufacturer. No, and he used to support that, but nothing well organized till 1994.
Wow.
Then Carlos Gracie, 1994, till Carlos Gracie Jr. decide that it's time to organize. People are going to say, yeah, but the Sikhs already have the Federation of Jiu-Jitsu of the state of Guanabara, which now Rio de Janeiro, no? And by the Grandmaster, the late now Robson Gracie.
Yes, sir.
But the organization and the competitions were not very organized and not very, I'll say, very often, because well, occasionally. And so Carlos Gracie Jr. saw that gap. And he organized it. And of course, it's going to be a long story, but make the long story short, it became what it is now, the IBJJF, in Brazil, the CBJJ, a tremendous success all over the world, make him a multimillionaire guy. And he owns since 1994.
Right.
Never changed. He's the owner.
And so was this prior to it coming into America and
Yeah.
obviously starting to become popular there, but the tournament system within Brazil, those practitioners, the grandmasters of today, how did you practice and was there competitions between said schools,
Yeah.
or was there another way that you developed?
At that time, at least what I can say for my experience, we don't have we have competitions, occasionally competition against other schools, friendly schools, or belongs to, for example, João Alberto Barreto have a school and Álvaro Barreto have another,
Yes, sir.
or some other close by. And we have, I talk about my generation, and we talk every single Friday. We have what we call taparia, which means like open hands, we remove the jacket,
Yes, sir.
and we go a group against another group. And every guy that was submitted by submission, because you close the disc and put on the ground, submit is one guy less in the other team. So many times at the end, you have one guy in one team and 3 or 4 or 5 in the other.
Right.
And this guy need to face the other 5 or 4. From that point, this used to be on the Fridays. At that time, we are young, and we like to prove ourselves. And I'm not bragging about that. I just say the facts.
Right.
We try to prove ourselves against other martial arts. So we try to looking for guys that do capoeira, boxing, whatever, in the nights of Rio de Janeiro.
Right.
So that gave a bad theme, of course, that we are troublemakers, etc. But this was not involved with weapons or anything at that time. It was
Right.
much more like a kind of a personal challenge, And from that point on, Jiu-Jitsu was start to change dramatically because start to someone else open a school in another state. Pedro Emetério opened a school in São Paulo, and so on. From that point on, Jiu-Jitsu started to be more towards sport,
Okay.
but still have a lot of a focus in the part of a fight.
Okay.
But an armed fight, they never involved, like, for example, the old styles of Jiu-Jitsu never involved the kubudo, for example, of karate or Jiu-Jitsu, using weapons
Right.
as a part of the self-defense. They never did that. And after the UFC came in, which more or less at the same time, or 1993 or something like that,
Yes, sir.
of course, this changed dramatically everything. So people have a lot of criticism about Rorion Gracie and what he did in terms of patenting the name Gracie, etc. I don't have any friendship with him. I know him very briefly, but I can tell that if it wasn't him in the UFC, we probably, most of us, will not be United States teaching Jiu-Jitsu
Right.
and all over the world, because that's what makes Jiu-Jitsu so popular all
Right.
over the world. However, at the same time, turned completely the initial idea or the initial goal, which was to be a martial arts. And it was not different of happened with karate, with taekwondo, with the Muay Thai.
Yes, sir.
Everything has been changed because sport is more attractive for young people, for kids, etc. It's much more profitable. There's no question about that. And it's not so difficult to practice as a martial arts really.
Right.
Because you're going to really train in martial arts, you need to go to a certain point that require at least that you spend money to buy full armor or something like that if you want to go to a real training or get shock knives or things like that, or train with the
Right.
pellets or the simunition or something like that. Anyway, that's the reality. And my problem with most of the community is that I understand that both things should be together. We cannot split one thing or the other. We cannot say, okay, my school is a school of sport-oriented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's your right to do that.
Right.
But then you should be a black belt, or your student became a black belt of sport-oriented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not the martial arts of Jiu-Jitsu. I think two things should be different. And this guy here maybe never compete because he not choose to be a sport-oriented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
He choose to be follow the path of the martial art itself.
Right.
But this is where the problem resides. That's where the problem came in. Because people say, no, everything is the same. We just do sport-oriented, and once in a while we do a self-defense. Some not even ignore. Some of the big organizations, they just don't do that. Now, a few years ago, very popular, very famous man, the Grandmaster Rickson Grace, decided to rescue, in certain way, the self-defense program or the self-defense system of the Gracies.
Right.
And said that because he was very happy with the rules that turn in Jiu-Jitsu much more like a grappling match looking for submissions instead of submission, I'm sorry, looking for advantage and points, okay? Right. Which is not really true, because a lot of great fighters now are very good submitters. They submit everybody.
Yes, sir.
So, but a lot of not. So the truth is that the rules allow them to do that, because obvious that you have only submissions. For example, if you go in a competition that only submissions is allowed, you need to expose yourself, because every single time you go for submission, you expose yourself to be a counter. But the moment that you know that if you pass, you go even for a half guard, from the guard for half guard, you get advantage, and maybe you hold the advantage over there, 2 minutes to go, or maybe even less, more than that, and they stay there.
Right.
And that's why I see people, coach, tell this for kids nowadays. I have kids of 7, 8 years old training with me, and I told them, you go for submission. I prefer that you lose looking for submission, that you start to fighting for win by advantage or for points. But I digress a little bit now. So let's go back for the main point. So the martial arts, in my opinion, must evolve that part of martial arts. And the only way to evolve the part of martial arts is to do exactly what Jiu-Jitsu did with the sport-oriented. Okay. Every single day, basically, someone comes some variation. Some things looks like more show off, but a lot of things make sense. And gi and no gi. Over the time, how many new variations or new techniques even came in? But not happened with the Gracie self-defense.
Right.
We still remain the same system of 120 years, probably 110 years ago. Nothing changed. Why? Because not included any kind of weapon, improvised weapons or edge weapons or firearms, nothing like that. Not including situational awareness, not include post-trauma, not including first cares or in case that you need to do something related to that. Not include a lot of things that happen in real life.
Right.
And in real life, it's not like the environment that you have in the sport. There's no rules at all. There's no rules. Right. People say, well, the only rule is to be under justified use of force. Ideally, yes, but maybe not. Maybe you're not even under justified use of force, but you need to do something.
Yeah.
So the truth is, in my experience, we should do something about that. And the way to do is to the community say, okay, you can have both. You can do sport, but at the same time, you need to do the martial art part if you want to be a complete Jiu-Jitsu black belt, right? Or a complete Jiu-Jitsu purple belt or brown belt or even blue belt. Right. You follow together, you go together, right. You know what I mean? But not what happened nowadays.
So you keep saying martial artists, and I know what you're saying because we've talked quite a bit previously. You know, you're not talking about just doing some self-defense, like
No,
countering a choke and moving directly under, and the
no.
rear choke defense, moving back and throwing them, or bear hug defense, and because there's a lot of jiu-jitsu schools that follow the Gracie's
Mm,
self-defense. That still does not fit your requirement. Your
no.
requirement is this holistic understanding of basically being able to protect yourself from start to finish. And in jujitsu, what happens is we tend to focus very heavily on tournament points type system, and heavy into the ground. Just some schools don't even do throws, and so we're not even hitting that requirement. So you're talking about not only being well versed in the area that jiu-jitsu is the best at, but going into these other areas that, say, Japanese jiu-jitsu had originally talked about: the striking, the weapons, the defense, the multiple attackers, the mindset of understanding that when things get real, that you may have to go well past what you're comfortable with. That's what you're talking about as far as a martial artist.
Yeah, if you ask me if I found a name, I say the science of street survival,
Okay.
because it's a science, and it's a science of street survival. Uh, has the martial part, because martial comes from the God of war, but it's essential at the reality that happened in real life. And that reality is not the reality of a clean environment with the mats and things like that and gis and things like that. That's not the reality. Have a reason why so many police officers have been killed by ambush and have been killed in action. Have a reason for that. And so many civilians are killed too. The problem is that people try to deny that fact. And I say, I'm not argue with emotions. I argue with facts. For example, if a certain technique teaching by self-defense works for a certain type of attack with a certain type of size of attacker, of weight, of age, and so on, is a limited type of attack, of defense. And so why it is a limited attack? Because not include anything that you can at least equalizer.
Right.
At least equalize, because ideally you should not even equalize, you should over equalize. But ideally, it's that because, like I told you, regardless of what you say, not myself only, but other guys, we are old people. I have 78 years old. I have 150 pounds. I train every day. But if you ask me, and very honest here, no midterms here. If I be attacked of a young guy, big guy, strong guy, and I need to defend myself because I don't looking for trouble. But if I need to defend myself, I will use the means necessary to survive.
Right.
I think that's enough to say.
Right.
But I use those means. And if I don't have those means or those tools on me, I'm not going to be able to use it, right?
Right.
And that's the problem. If you try to tell me, and that I have a big argument with some other grandmasters, you tell me that any martial arts, unarmed martial arts, is enough to defend yourself against armored attacks. I'm not even talk about multiple ones. I just talk about, see, and even an unarmed attacker, much younger, much bigger, much stronger, under drugs, sometimes pain resistant, and you are not in your prime.
Yes.
That's not true. That's not true. And I prove that with facts, with the statistics. No? But the problem is that people, or by ego or by perpetual denial, they refuse to see that truth.
Right. If you're enjoying this video, I want to take a second to talk about EliteU.com, where you'll be able to find early access to all of our YouTube content, as well as exclusive interviews and access to mentors. And now back to the video. Your participation in the Civil War and that being a part of your history, was that something that influenced this, or was this just something that you
Oh,
knew
absolutely.
before, or like because obviously the other grandmasters were around during that time,
Yeah.
yet They
I don't know
did.
how many of them has been in this kind of commitment, no?
Yes,
But
sir.
yes,
But they did not adopt that same mentality nor
no,
question all
no.
of that. So it's a unique perspective on wanting to do that. And you believe that the sport aspect did bring about great innovation in jujitsu techniques, but by also doing that, you left behind the things that would protect someone who's a practitioner. And so that's just something that you've constantly harped about. What was it like being around it and coming up through the higher ranks and having this mentality? How many people
Well,
kind of
what,
shared
what
this?
can I
And
say? That just let me come back a little bit
okay,
about that, because the guerrilla war, that's exactly what happened in Brazil. The same guy that is your waiter in the lunch is the terrorist put a bomb in your car in the afternoon.
yeah,
So you learn a lot about survival, because it's not another guy from another country with another appearance, with another language. He's the same guy. He's the
right,
same Brazilian guy. And sometimes I had that situation. I don't want to mention names here. We have two guys of judo that train and compete, and they are both terrorists.
wow,
You know what I mean? So the truth is you learn a lot. See, I have another advantage, because my late brother was the CEO for many years of Toros, the gunfight.
right,
So since 12, 13 years old, I have been involved with something like that. But the truth is, let's go back for the main thing. I never had problem about my way to see the things, because I always lead both. I uh, I have the privilege and opportunity and honor to have world champions trained by me in ADCC, in Jiu-Jitsu sport, in MMA. I have guys that has been training with me at least for a while.
right,
I train in Márcio Coleta, I train in Fabrício Verdun, I train in Mike Robson, I train in Nate Marcotte, just to mention some. And this gave me that kind of reputation as a, let's say, a good coach
yes, sir,
in that part. But the other part was my work with the community, work with the community and the law enforcement. And in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, I taught many law enforcement. I taught in the State Police Academy. And when I taught them, I basically revolutionized. I changed the way they see the things. And now my followers continue to do that.
right,
You know, but in the community was like a big barrier, because every single time I question that we need to update the Gracie system of self-defense, wow, I was the black sheep.
right,
Who am I to dare to question that? Well, I don't think I am anything exceptional. Absolutely not. Exceptional for me was the Grandmaster João Alberto Barreto, Carlson Grace, and so many other ones, right? But I did my way and I did my job. And I know about street because I have been there.
right,
See? So that's why I try to tell them, listen, we're not going to deny the whole system. We're just going to update. We're going to fix this
right,
for reasons like you're a fifth degree black belt under a great master, which is Carlos Machado, which I have not my generation, but I have the ultimate respect for him and his family. But it's different.
yes,
It's different because if you look in some of the techniques, and I not name it here, but you know, because you have been trained to, those techniques are not effective for every single situation. You know what I mean?
right,
I used to say, have an ancestral concept or principle of the martial arts, not even from judo, but from the old jiu-jitsu, the Japanese jiu-jitsu, the kobushi.
yes, sir,
The kobushi is offense and defense are the same in one, depend of the situation. And what I say is this: if you be attacked by a much stronger, much like again, the same thing I said, and you don't have any tools with you, Some of those techniques that you see, for example, the beer grab, the beer hug or the beer grab from behind, and you defend, you move your hips, grab the legs of the guy, throw over your hips and go the other side. Or have a baby at my school of 320 pounds with a belly like that of sumo guy in 6'4", 6'5". I can do that.
Right.
But I can stab him. And I can shoot him. And I can use anything that's necessary to defend myself.
Right.
What that means that I deny the effectiveness of other things? No. I just say update, be realistic, like you do it.
Right.
And not only you do it, I mean, it would be great if all of us could be a mix of Jason Bourne and John Wick. I love to be that, but that's not reality, right? So what I say is this: open your mind, accept the fact that sport is sport, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, or street survival.
Right.
Why not call that part of street survival jiu-jitsu, whatever, and included all that, and you can be a black belt, whatever, because really for street survival or for real life, doesn't matter belts or symbols or anything like that. Just matter how you know, how much you're prepared for yourself. But let's say they want to give belts or something like that. So you can be this here, okay? And at the same time, you can be a great competitor too. You can have time to do that. You just balance like anything in life. You can train it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday one thing, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday the other, right? You can do that. But if you just do one part, you're not going to be good in the other. And of course, both ways, it's the same thing. If you are very good here in street survival, but you never train for sport, you never even know the rules.
Right.
What are you going to do over there? You know what I mean? So that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I don't know why people say, oh, you're against sport jiu-jitsu. I'd be stupid if I'd be against sport jiu-jitsu. It's something that gave me so many happiness, so many opportunities to visit all the world, to make students from white belt to champions of the world. You see what I mean? Why are you going to be against that? You know, why? It don't make any sense. But in my age, in my time, I think it's my responsibility to pass what I see is the reality. And that's why I try to do in my union team all over the world, you know. And I tell them, listen, guys, do both. Try to learn to survive. Because maybe tomorrow, who knows, you're going to be involved in a war.
Yeah, you're training. So your training methodology from white belt all the way through however long they train through black belt, it starts off with the end goal thought process that they are training in both consistently, because both are important. That is the way to, if you're gonna say the word fix this, that would be the solution. You start with the understanding.
Even my kids, I of course with difference,
Right.
but I teach them traumatic strikes. I excluded the word traumatic,
Right.
but much more because, you know, it's not politically correct, but the parents go, oh my God, traumatic, you know, but it is. So I teach them what they can do it, but they learn how to strike, because otherwise they go for, let's say, have a situation in school, and a bully attack him, but if the bully is a taekwondo guy or something like that, he never had been face anything that kick or punch him or anything, just grappling. He may be going to be confused. And I heard people say, yeah, but he's doing jiu-jitsu, he closed the distance, put the guy down. Yes and no. Depends on who is the other guy.
Right.
Depends if the guy is good. Well, he can be a good kicker. You see this in MMA. You have guys in MMA that is very difficult to put down. Shook Norris, for example, Shook Liddell was a guy that was very difficult to put down.
Right.
He was a very good striker, not very good on the ground, but was very good striking. It was a good
And
fighter.
he was amazing at wrestling. He just uses wrestling to stay
and they
standing.
use the wrestling too.
He
Exactly.
just liked hitting people.
Exactly. So what I say is this: the problem is when you decide to say it is that way, or my way, or the highway. It's not that way.
But that's just how your mindset is, and how you push your experience towards them, because that's what you believe is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
As it's going in. Now, we had spoken previously about this mindset is not really that foreign for all of the Gracie schools prior to when they were giving out black belts. You were talking about how very exclusive that was, that you had to be the best of the best to even rank because they would be a fighter if they had a black belt or they represented the school. Can you speak a little bit on that and just, because I don't think a lot of people understand that history. That, like right now, you have a curriculum, you have time and grade, and it's like you'll get your blue belt,
Yeah.
purple belt, and then you'll get your black belt. Men, women, and I call them children, but I understand you have to be 18 to get your black belt, but or 19 to get your black belt, but that's still very, very young. That's not how it used to be prior to
Yeah, the first generation, because like I said, I never have been directly under the Gracie Academy under Elio Gracie,
Yes, sir.
for the reason I told you, but I have been under the guys that have been with him,
Mm-hmm.
like João Barreto, Álvaro Barreto, mainly Álvaro Barreto. But the problem is, at that time, the first 36 classes, half an hour was one-on-one, only self-defense. The whole program was self-defense, the great self-defense. That's exactly what the goal was. So the whole system was focused for self-defense. That was the reason for what you read, including the book of Robert Drysdale and others, for the reason why Carlson Gracie, which was almost like the black sheep of the Gracies all the time, the Carlson decided to open his own school in Copacabana to be sport-oriented, to be focused in competition, right? Because at the same time in downtown, in Rio de Janeiro, the main school, the academy, the Gracie Academy, was focused in self-defense, the self-defense of systems. Now, if you want to fight in the name of the Gracies, you need to be approved directly by the Grandmaster Elio Gracie. Has a time that you have over there great fighters that was also instructors, like João Alberto Barreto was one of them, Carlson was another one, Valdemar Santana was the other one. Valdemar Santana was a black belt before they split, no?
Right.
And have Jorge Castro Medi, that became later on a very famous judo professor and judo competitor. At that time was with them too, and so on, But this was not my time. I was before me.
Right.
So when I came in, when I started in, they already have much more toward that part of a competition, but at the same time, the emphasis of self-defense. So we all train both.
Right.
Over the time, that part was put at the side. And you have today huge organizations, very well succeeded in the sport-oriented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which the name Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as you know, was only created because the Gracie name was patented in the United States by Rorion Gracie.
Right.
Nobody else ever thought to change the name Gracie, but they need to have a name. The same thing happened with MMA. Before MMA was anything goes or no hold bars, but those names were very political, uncorrected. So they decided to find a name that was more acceptable, and they came the MMA. They changed the rules of MMA. You remember that the first UFC was bare hands, right? Headbutts allowed, that elbows allowed, they kick the guy on the ground. They changed that to adapt. And like everything else. But the self-defense was put at the side. And they put at the side at that time already. I questioned at that time, I even was a black belt, maybe first degree or something like that. And I questioned because I came from those years of war. And on my law enforcement background, contact with training the law enforcement all the time, I start to learn the reality. And I say, well, without weapons, you're going to be the weakest part.
Right.
That means that you should not know how to use your unarmored technique, but you need to put together.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything new. All the wars in the world over the centuries have been won by the armored, not the unarmored, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
Right.
But the problem is that people want to believe in what they want to believe. And then come ego, etc., etc. And when you try to question that, you're considered like the black sheep. You're considered like the guy to dare to question that.
Right.
So that's a problem because history is history. Facts are facts. They can change, they can adapt, they can twist it, but the facts are facts.
Right.
So I'm not talking about emotions, I talk about facts. I would love to see Jiu-Jitsu in both ways. And I'm not even name martial. Say Jiu-Jitsu for street survival and Jiu-Jitsu for sport-oriented. Why not? Now, if you're going to be an expert in this area and don't want to do the other area, that's okay. You want to do only the other area, I don't think it's okay. But you can choose, of course. But don't tell me that you are expertise in both when you are just in one.
Right. Now I know we could talk about this and the history, and there's a bunch of questions
Yeah,
that
a
I kind of
lot.
wanted to get to, but I only had you for a little bit.
Yeah.
If you were to give advice to those within the community, those aspiring, maybe they hear this this message and they're like, okay, so everything's making sense, but how do I actually do that? What would be your advice? Is it just to branch out and find those that can supplement what is not being taught? Because the entire community is built around
Yeah.
sports. So, maybe seeking your instructor and asking him to do it, you may not receive
Yeah.
the information.
I think that's something they're going to take some time, but I just asking them to looking for the facts,
Right.
to the facts, not emotion, just the facts. Okay? Think about what is the reality they live at every day. Not only in Brazil, but all over the world. If you live in here in Atlanta, if you live in here in Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, whatever, you know the reality of day by day.
Yeah, the worst,
If
worst
you
case
have any
scenarios.
question about that, go to live footage in YouTube. For law enforcement, live footage in YouTube. Go for the facts. Look in the documentary, The Cops. Just look it and see by yourself. Or you see they're using, of course, they're using techniques of jiu-jitsu there, or even techniques of grappling or whatever, but you don't see them in certain situations try to solve the situation unarmed.
Right.
Because you'll be completely stupid to do that. I'm sorry the word, but that's exactly what I think. So what I tell for the community is this. It's not me. Just think about the facts. Why not do something that we did for the sport? Why not evolve in the part of the street survival as we evolve it as sport? Don't make any sense. Why not?
Right.
Well, because that it is. No, that it is not. That's not the answer. If we can evolve here and change so many things that was done one way and now it's done another way, because don't tell me that you're passing guard the same way that you're passing 66 years ago when I start. That's not true. You have many other things. Just to give an example, right? And the other side, why you need to keep the same techniques that never had been totally proved that battlefield proved, put this way. Some of those techniques need to be changed, need to be included part of the weapons, improvised weapons, edge weapons, whatever type of weapon, including firearms. That is, we talk about street survival. And you need to have situational awareness, how to avoid, how to evade, how to comply, how to using management of aggressive behavior, everything together, not one thing only. How to handle post-trauma situation, how to help someone that injured or yourself, how to check yourself if you have been injured or not. Some things like that. It's not difficult, but require training, require dedication, the same way you go for sport.
Right.
That's what I have to say.
I think that's a great call to action. I personally like it, obviously. But I would like to have further conversations in the future.
It'll be my pleasure.
It's been an honor to have you on. I know that this is something we've been planning for a while. If people wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, you can go for my website, unionteambjj.com, because BJJ was the name required by the community right now. But they can call me, and my number 770-865-2758. I'm able to talk with them. Right. And my email, my personal email is bjjmurgel@yahoo.com.br.
Awesome.
And I'm available to talk with them. My pleasure. Like I said, I'm not arguing about emotion, about situations that not involve facts. It's facts. And I would like to see the community involved with that. Not because I said that, but because they understood the necessity to do that.
Yes, sir. Well,
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed that content, we have more videos over here for you to check out. For those of you looking to enhance your knowledge, make sure that you go over to eliteu.com, where you will have early release of YouTube videos and access to exclusive content. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.